Lately, everyone in South Korea is obsessed with this multiplayer, online game that lets players build their own dungeons. Among them, our main man. Kang Chiu is a total beast of a player. His skills are so cracked that everyone thinks he's a hacker or an AI. To put it bluntly, this guy basically lives at the top of the server. And honestly, looking at his vibes and the way he carries himself, everyone's convinced he's an actual robot. Well, that makes sense. The reason he's head over heels for this game is because inside, he can manipulate everything, which is a far cry from the real world. In real life, things that seem simple are never that easy. Look at those power poles over there. Even if he wanted to shift them or use them to optimize efficiency, he's stuck. But in the game, he can change the size, shape, or anything else with just a single click. Even that truck barreling straight toward him could be moved out of the way. But since this is reality, he's pretty sure he's about to get isekai'd for real. Luckily, the driver slammed on the brakes just in time. But the driver got heated when he saw Chiyu just standing there in the middle of the road. Our guy simply pointed at the traffic light, which was green for pedestrians to cross. It's so frustrating when he can't do what he wants in this world. If he had the power to warp reality like in the game, everything would be so much smoother. For instance, that giant steel reinforcement beam that's coming loose over there. It's about to fall any second. It's only a matter of time before it squashes that little girl like a bug. With no other choice, Kang Chiu rushed forward, shoved the girl off the tracks, and got wrecked instantly. But as we all know, this isn't the end of his story. When he opened his eyes again, he found himself floating in a pitch-black void. In front of him stood a monster that looked like a demon giving him some advice. Death is merely a means of rebirth, and Chiyu still hasn't grasped the actual reality that he has overlooked. With all of this happening, the soul of Chiyu was thrown into the body of a demon. Naturally, a million questions are racing through his head. Like, what kind of middle-of-nowhere place is this? Whose body is this? And why isn't he dead yet? One thing's for sure. He is almost 100% certain he has been reincarnated into the body of some random guy. The intense sensations flooding his senses are proof enough that this is definitely not a dream. As for where he is, all he can tell is that he's inside some kind of ancient, solemn castle. While mumbling all these questions to himself, a sharp blade pierced straight through his chest. Blood started gushing out. The woman then pulled the sword out, causing even more pain as she delightedly watched him struggle. Chiyu couldn't understand how he was still conscious after taking such a fatal blow. He turned to her and asked why she did it. The woman didn't bother with a long explanation, raising her sword again to turn Chiyu into dust. But she stopped immediately when someone else walked in. Turns out the three of them are siblings, and that girl is Kudara, their younger sister. The eldest brother, who just appeared, felt pity for the youngest brother and told his sister not to be so hard on him. He knelt down to Chiyu's eye level and handed him a vial. He faked concern for his little brother, making our guy think this dude actually cared about him. So he grabbed the vial, certain it was some kind of healing elixir. The second he drank it, he realized painfully that it was poison and started barfing his guts out. Immediately. By the way, his new name in this world is Keola. His throat felt like it was being pierced by millions of needles, burning like it was about to catch fire. Seeing him in such agony, that trashy little sister started to get worried, thinking he was about to kick the bucket. After all, she wanted to be the one to end his life. The eldest brother reassured her that Keola might be in pain, but this piece of garbage wouldn't die that easily. Suddenly, the castle gates swung open, and soldiers announced the return of King H.L. Kandun after his hero-hunting expedition. Turns out, the king they mentioned is the father of these pathetic siblings, who were bullying Keola. Looking closer, the king looks like a total alpha, with a stern attitude written all over his face. Right now, he's disappointed to hear those pathetic screams echoing throughout his castle. The trashy sister started apologizing for the noise and tried to pin the blame on Keola. But the Demon King wasn't having any of their nonsense. In a split second, he closed the gap between them, grabbed both of his children by the throat, and began to choke them with his God-given iron grip. In his view, for the weak to make any noise within his castle walls was a total insult. Both siblings continued to apologize through suffocated breaths. At that moment, Keola realized this bastard was his father, if those two parasites were his siblings. The Demon King then proceeded to stomp on Keola. Anyway, the only sounds he accepts in his castle are the cries of a great demon being born, or the sound of an honorable death. With that said, he crushed Keola as if he were an empty soda can, making his screams ring through the entire castle. As Keola lay there defeated, one thing was for sure: he definitely wasn't dreaming. He had definitely reincarnated into another world, and if this tragicomedy wasn't bad enough, he turned out to be the son of a total douchebag Demon King. Before we go any further with the story, let's rewind back to when Keola was just a kid. As usual, he was the punching bag for his siblings, and all he could do was cry and whine to his mom. While Tudera was poking his eye with a fork, his third brother was busy poisoning his food. The only advice his helicopter mom ever gave him was to hit them back like a real demon. Keola could have done that, but he was terrified of the consequences of messing with his siblings, like he could literally get killed for it. His mom simply suggested that he should kill them before they could kill him. See, Keola's dad killed 12 of his own siblings to become the great demon king. So since someone was trying to kill Keola, it was only natural he should kill them first. Then she pulled out a dagger and quickly stabbed the poor child in the stomach, just to show him the way of the demon. This was how he was supposed to treat his siblings. Immediately, Keola woke up from the nightmare, gasping for air. There was a maid by his side, who looked relieved to see him awake. Meanwhile, our guy was piecing everything together. What he just saw in the dream were fragments of memories from the original owner of this body. Keola Kadun then noticed that all his wounds had healed, meaning the owner of this body possessed a broken regeneration ability. The maid reminded him that he'd been out cold for a few days now, so he should get up and have a meal with the family to recover his energy. This woman was actually Keola's personal servant, and her name was Jin. Keola is much more timid than his brothers, so he's always being looked down on. Even Jin doesn't treat him the way a maid should. Keola has many memories of Jin, and none of them are pleasant at all. He was never an obedient servant, always slacking off instead of finishing her tasks. To put it simply, she's a total little brat. For the first time, Keola also felt that the previous owner of this body was truly pathetic. After all, if that wasn't the case, he wouldn't have let a servant treat the Demon King's son like this. Basically, Keola has been bullied by everyone this whole time. Thinking back on it now, his life here isn't much different from the life he had in his previous world. At this point, the weak being devoured by the strong is just the law of nature. Later, when he sat down at the family dinner table, he saw his father and siblings there. The Demon King seemed a bit annoyed by Keola's lateness. Keola instinctively felt scared. But anyway, he was right in front of the Demon King. However, he still took his seat and apologized for being late. The poor kid couldn't even have one peaceful day. His younger sister Kudera flicked a dagger under the table, stabbing him right in the leg. Naturally, this caused him excruciating pain. Meanwhile, Kudera and her servant laughed like a pack of wolves. She teased him and hoped he'd enjoy his meal and grow up to be a good person. Inside, Keola was dying from the pain. He couldn't imagine what the consequences would be if his family knew that the person inside this body was no longer Keola anymore. However, on the outside, he still pretended to appreciate the concern that she was showing him and promised to eat well. But as soon as he took the first bite, he realized that what he was eating wasn't food at all. This is definitely Tammy's karma catching up to him. Instead of serving high-end dishes, he served a bowl of rotten soup as an appetizer. Tammy just kept smiling brightly, putting on a deep act like he really cares for his brother. But Keelan knew all too well it was just a mask. To be blunt, the three demons sitting here aren't family at all. They are nothing but bitter rivals, and this is when he takes an oath. From now on, he won't be a punching bag for these people anymore. He's done with this whole circus. It's time for a life makeover. In the past, he always wanted to make something of himself. In the game, he was hailed as a God-tier map designer, but in real life, he was an absolute total loser, completely drowning in despair, without a single ray of hope. And so his life ended under a pile of construction scrap. But this time, he absolutely cannot die. Not in such a pathetic way again. Thinking that, he grabbed the food plate and threw it straight at his sister's face. Why should he be the only one tasting such heartfelt affection from Tammy? That wasn't all. He even pulled out the dagger pinned in his leg and hurled it straight at Takma. If we're playing the whole team plays, why should he be the only one enjoying sister's gifts? Of course, the Demon King had no idea. What the heck was wrong with Keola acting out like this? What's gotten into him? He grabbed the entire dining table and flipped it over, sending food and drinks flying everywhere. A moment later, looking back at Keola, he looked gleeful after wrecking the whole family's day. Though maybe he shouldn't have flipped that table, because his dad's temper just hit max level. Keola got beaten within an inch of his life like a stray dog, but he recovered so fast that he didn't even complain, feeling a strange power within. It made him feel like he truly is the son of the Demon King. Now he wants to test just how far his power goes. Just in time, the maid reminded him that he has a magic class scheduled. Keller replied coldly. He said he's not down with that bossy attitude anymore. Of course, Jin was stunned, having no idea where this attitude came from. Meanwhile, Keller was thinking about those damn magic classes. From what he gathered through Keller's memories, those were the most horrific things he had ever experienced. But that doesn't mean he can just ditch class, you know. Later, when they reached the training grounds, the instructor announced that Lady Kudera and the third young master are absent today. The instructor was just glad that at least the rest of the students showed up. Among those students was Keola, who looked like he couldn't stand. Two annoyances standing on either side of him. He recognized them through Keola's memories. and the memories shared with these guys weren't happy ones. In those memories, these bastards were always beating up the cowardly Keola, claiming it was just training. The whole bunch of them, including his own siblings, were straight-up demons, getting a kick out of bullying him like it was a hobby. Even though Keller didn't want to fight, and didn't want to continue those sparring games, they always found an excuse to beat him to a pulp. To Keller, one thing was clear as day. The original owner of this body wasn't weak at all, he was just way too kind. Well, the nice guy Keller is gone now. Keller plans to change everything. He'll use this OP power for himself, and show those bastards that they are nothing but trash. When the class started, the instructor announced they would continue the sparring session. Left unfinished from the other day, the red-haired kid said he was sparring with Keller last time. The arrogant redhead kept trash-talking to provoke Keller. But this is his fatal mistake, and Keller is sure he'll regret it when they face off. The redhead summoned red and blue energy around his hands, ready for battle. The kids around were certain that Keller was about to get wrecked again. One even told the redhead to go easy on Keola, or else they wouldn't be able to stand his crying. By the way, this guy's name is Russ, Keola. Noticed that these guys were pretty similar to the bullies from his past life. In a way, they reminded him of his old self. Just like in his previous life, he had no money or power, and everyone looked down on him. But now all of that is ancient history. At that point, our friend began to radiate a massive amount of mana, enough to make his opponent tremble in fear. Not just him, but the whole pack of haters turned pale in front of Keller. Russ looked like he was about to lose it. The pressure was so intense his legs felt bolted to the floor. Keller, on the other hand, clenched his fist and delivered a thunderous punch, drilling that bastard into the ground. The group of lackeys who were just gloating and mocking Keola were now left jaw-dropped. Even the teacher was breaking into a cold sweat. Russ didn't have a single second to react. It was truly beyond imagination. Russ's face now looked like a smashed piñata, horns broken, teeth out, covered in blood. Keola wasn't playing around at all. This punch was a message that Keola is no longer some random street kid or a nobody. He is the son of the powerful Demon King, and he won't tolerate anyone insulting royalty. Russ struggled to squeeze out an apology because he really didn't want to die. Keller gave him a death stare to make sure that bastard never dared to do it again. Meanwhile, a wave of despair began to spread among the crowd. Lola stood on the sidelines watching. They couldn't believe this was the loser Keola they used to bully. Keola has officially reached Sigma level now. His mere presence was enough to make the teacher fear for his life. Keola turned to the scrub teacher and demanded he teach the lesson properly. In the back, Jin was also stunned by this side of Keola, something she had never seen before. For the first time, she was certain that something shady was going on. The scene then shifts to the Demon King standing on the balcony watching everything unfold. Switch to Hyokandun Castle, where Keela's annoying siblings are gathering. Sodera is fuming because that brat dared to throw poisoned soup in her face. As for Tammy, he can't forget the humiliation he had to endure. Now Takma tells his sister to chill and focus on recovering. After all, she doesn't have that insane healing ability like Keola, which only makes her even more livid. She screamed that only that brat was blessed with such regeneration. Tammy is certain that Keela has gone through some kind of personality shift. He couldn't stop thinking about how Keela dared to flip the table and announce that from now on, everyone eats in their own private rooms. Just that act alone was enough to make their father smile, something they had never seen in their entire lives. Sodera got even angrier. The thought of her father smiling because of someone like Keola drove her crazy. Tammy shared her sentiment. Then, he said he'd rather die than cooperate with her, but the situation is so urgent that he had no other choice but to suggest they team up to take out Keola first. Sodera grinned widely, signaling that she was totally down with the idea. She also wanted to deal with her brother before Keola became their father's favorite. The scene then shifts back to Keola in class. He flinched when the teacher showed a hologram of the previous Demon King, Tak Kandun. Just seeing Tak was enough to make Keola instantly shook. The teacher continued, explaining that Tak was hailed as the strongest demon of his era. His downfall came from a dirty plot by the Heavenly Society. Since then, every guild began marching toward the Demon Kingdom in hopes of being the first to wipe out the demons. Keola already knew about these guilds from Keola's memories. Rumor has it that because of these guilds, Keola could never escape this castle and live a normal life. Living in this hellhole was pure misery. The instructor explained that, with the powerful Heavenly Society as their backbone, those bastards are preparing to invade the Demon Kingdom. So to help their daddy king smoke those fools, the teacher encouraged every student to go all out with their skills and combat training. The entire student body cheered in excitement, hyping up their great Demon King with everything they had. Back to Keola. He's now chilling at the highest point of the castle, eyes fixed on the horizon. He's definitely looking for a way to sneak out. Staying here means getting caught up in his siblings' drama, which could end in disaster at any moment. According to Jin, his father will be heading out of the castle to hunt heroes within the next 3 days. Kaola immediately whispered and asked her if she knew any fatal weaknesses of this entire castle. Jin got a bit nervous because Kaola was suddenly so serious, but she just kept shaking her head no. Kaola revealed that the castle lacks a navigator. There's no one to map things out for strategic direction. Those trashy guilds are exploiting the neglected surrounding lands to launch surprise attacks on them. Kaola didn't want to waste a single second before his father sets off on his journey. In the meantime, he intended to personally remap the world. He believed this was the only way to help his father totally wreck all the low-level thugs daring to trespass on their territory. While the old Kaola failed time and time again, this Kaola was determined to successfully escape this fate. Here he had more freedom than in his old world, and he was dead sure he could finish the map with no problem. Suddenly he whipped around to Jin and shouted, telling her to set up a secret base in the castle basement, ASAP. He needed a space to pull the strings in secret, without his father catching wind of his plans. Back to the Great Demon King. It seems he's already onto Kaola's prison break plot. He's certain that Kaola, you can't hide anything from father. So before it's too late, the Great King decided to just show his cards. The next scene opens with Kaola's face full of pure disappointment. The space Jin chose for him is so far off from what he had in mind. It looks more like a storage unit than a high-end office worthy of the Demon King's son. Poor Jin starts tearing up because this was the best spot she could find, especially since she was told to keep this place top secret. It seems Kaola is being intentionally grumpy with her to establish a legit master-servant relationship. And it looks like his change in attitude is actually working. Jin feels like he's become way more intimidating, totally different from the Kaola she used to know. At the same time, she can't help but fall for his new cool vibe. He now carries such an air of authority and power that she's totally swooning. Kaola snaps at her for daydreaming and orders her to go brew him a cup of coffee right now. The poor girl scurries off to get it done as told. In the meantime, Kaola finally focuses on his master plan. He spreads the map out on the table. After seeing how the demon castle is lagging behind, geographically, he decided to draw his own custom map. Meanwhile, Jin is running like crazy through the deserted hallways, trying to finish the task she was given. She was so focused she completely blanked on the fact that there's no coffee here, and she's totally out of the loop, having no idea how to handle this ridiculous request. Right then, she's startled by the appearance of the Great Demon King, who asks what she's doing in the basement without Kaola and where Kaola is. The poor girl starts getting all flustered, because she had been told to keep it a secret about that office, but under the scrutinizing gaze of the Great Demon King, she wasn't sure how much longer she could keep her mouth shut. Meanwhile, Kaola was vibing drawing the map with ease. He was truly enjoying this artistic moment. Suddenly, an explosion rocked the front gate. Naturally, it was his father, who was absolutely livid upon learning that Kaola dared to set up a secret office without reporting it. Before the guy could even explain himself, he took a direct punch to the gut. His father wanted him to face things head-on, not skulk around in the basement, plotting to assassinate the king like a coward. The pain Kaola was feeling was on a whole different level compared to the petty squabbles with his siblings. If this continued for a few more minutes, Kaola would surely be a goner. Before that could happen, he quickly presented the map to his father. The Great Demon King was baffled, not understanding what Kaola was trying to prove by handing him a map. Kaola started rattling it off like a script, explaining that the castle's outskirts were geographically disadvantaged for battles against the guilds. If they altered the terrain based on his map, it would be a game changer for upcoming battles. The Great Demon King finally got it and pulled back, though he still didn't quite get why. Kaola needed a secret office for this. Kaola didn't hesitate, explaining it would be too arrogant to outright say he wanted to help the mighty Great Demon King in his endeavors. That's why he wanted to present the finished map, instead of just blabbing about his intentions. Now that he had proven his worth with the map, he asked his father for permission to assist in crushing the heavenly forces. Jin, watching from behind, was basically hyperventilating. He wondered how Kaola could be so reckless, daring to speak to the Great Demon King with such confidence. She thought he was literally asking for a death sentence. But it looks like Jin is overthinking things a bit. The Great Demon King simply asked how long it would take to finish the map. Kaola's eyes lit up like a kid in a candy store, realizing his father actually approved of his map. He held up 5 fingers. The Great Demon King misunderstood his gesture and thought Kaola was asking for 5 days. So, the guy quickly cleared things up by assuring him that he only needed 5 hours, and once the map was done, they could wrap up the necessary construction before the battle with the heavenly realm. The Great Demon King was shook by his son's audacity. Finally, he gave a slight smirk and granted Keola all the necessary authority. However, the great Demon King warned Keola that if he was all talk and no action, it would cost him his life. With that, the great Demon King vanished into thin air. Suddenly, a wave of pain hit Keola and he started vomiting, the aftermath of the punch he took from his father. Seriously, though, he couldn't stomach the fact that his own father almost took him out if he hadn't proven himself. Meanwhile, Jin felt a bit of admiration. Her master actually negotiated with the great Demon King in his favor. Of course, the poor girl got yelled at again for just standing there, Spacey, and was told to take Keola to the infirmary. Just as Keola promised, he finished the map in a record time of 5 hours. The great Demon King's forces assembled and began large-scale construction. According to the new plan, mages used illusion magic outside the construction zone to reshape the terrain so the enemy wouldn't notice what was going on behind the scenes. Just like Keola had carried every map in the game, this map was a massive success too. Cut to the Hermiston Heaven Guild Council. The Heaven Guild Master informs his troops that the demons are terraforming the surrounding area to their advantage. They also discovered that the demons are using illusion magic. One of the subordinates asked whether they should launch an attack to disrupt the demons' preparations or not. The old man said no. According to his strategic instincts, attacking now is pointless because they're already late to the party. Their only option is to stick to the original plan. In 3 days, the strongest team formed in Talua, called Tunken, will arrive. Talua has established Tunken, their powerhouse squad, for decades. Now, that elite team has finally reached its peak. He's certain those stubborn demons won't stand a chance against the ultimate elite squad. The team that has been prepped for decades will be here in 3 days. That's the reason why he's positive the great Demon King will be pushing daisies. Cut to the Tunken team rushing at full throttle. They're confident they'll reach the Demon King's castle in just 2 days. Led by General Kuman, who's absolutely hyped up, he rallies his troops, vowing they'll be the ones to dethrone the great Demon King, who has reigned for millennia. The rest of the team is just as thirsty for battle, ready to torch the demon castle and slaughter every creature inside. Riding right below is Rios, the military commander. She's incredibly proud of General Kuman's leadership. Her subordinate asks if they can really take down the great Demon King this time. Rios gives a firm yes. Tunkan is unlike any other guild. Toppling the great Demon King and his castle isn't some pipe dream. It's only a matter of time. Meanwhile, the final boss, Demon King, seems pretty stoked after seeing just how fire Keola's map turned out to be. Even if it's not a perfect plan, it's better than nothing. Right. Man with those hot mess bodies that are about to expire, the old man doesn't have many options left to lean on. Tomorrow will be the day he settles everything with the heavens once and for all. The mages and the demons are busting their asses to finish the necessary projects before the deadline hits. Keller looks around as everything starts taking shape. He can feel the difference between sketching out in-game maps and terraforming the real world. Games and reality really are built different, but there's still a certain thrill when you have the power to mold the entire land. Now all he has to do is sit tight and wait for the earth-shattering battle between hell and heaven to go down. Tomorrow will decide if his map is actually trippy as hell. Finally, the fateful day of the battle arrived. The heavenly side has fully assembled its forces, and Tonkin's team has also reached the base. The soldiers chant Tonkin's name in unison. He really is the goat of the youth. Grandmaster Hermiston meets Commander Kilman to strategize. Kilman expresses his hype, wanting to march into the Demon King's territory ASAP and throw hands in a deadly battle. The old man Hermiston is ready to deploy the plan, and before setting off, the soldiers raise their hands to the sky and shout their battle cry. Then out of nowhere, a tiny neon green orb appears right between the feet of Kilman and Hermiston. It looks exactly like a teleportation portal expanding at the speed of light. Kilman roars, telling the troops to prepare for a surprise attack from the enemy, ordering them into a defensive stance. From within that neon green energy surge, none other than Demon King H.L. Kandun himself steps out, dripped out to the max. To understand why the final boss personally joined the fray, let's rewind the clock to a moment prior. Keller spills a secret to his father, that he had removed the barrier, the one that had focused the heavenly surveillance magic on their castle. This means that his father can now freely use teleportation magic, without worrying about anyone snooping. In no time, the powerful Demon King will be standing right at the center of the heavenly base. Naturally, his daughter protested vehemently, arguing her head off, that teleporting straight into the heart of the enemy base was way too reckless. Tommy also jumped onto the bandwagon, saying it was too dangerous, even if the one doing it was the Demon King himself. The Demon King flew into a rage over this trolling. He felt like his children were questioning his confidence. Both siblings were shaking like a leaf under their father's fiery gaze. Actually, they just meant he hadn't fully recovered yet, and should avoid such risks. But the Demon King had had enough. He brushed them off, reminding them that only he has the power to decide what's right and what's wrong. He's already made his choice. He will launch the opening attack right at the center of the heavenly base. Back to the present. The Demon King swears he'll wipe them all out clean. Kuman, on the other hand, is also determined to make the Demon King regret ever daring to set foot here. He quickly orders his squad of superheroes to open fire. Meanwhile, Keller has gathered all his forces exactly where he needs them. With preparations complete, he orders the army to charge in full of bloodlust. The terrifying army roars as they surge forward, while the heavenly soldiers begin casting their offensive spells. But they are caught off guard when a massive number of demons suddenly erupt from the ground, grabbing hold of the mortals. Keller stands on high ground observing, despite the bloodbath taking place down below. He couldn't hold back a satisfied smirk, seeing everything going exactly according to plan. Just as Keller was enjoying the success of his mind-blowing map, his two siblings showed up, and it's clear they came to turn his life into a total nightmare. They didn't want him hogging all the glory and validation from their father, so Keller had to be taken out right then and there. Tammy swung her bizarre whip, piercing right through Keller's stomach. Holy crap. It sank deeper into his body, relentlessly burrowing further in. While Tammy pushed the tentacle deeper, she ordered Hydra to make her move ASAP. She lunged at Keller with her sword in hand, and in a split second, she decapitated him like slicing a cucumber. A fatal stroke. The two siblings flashed a triumphant smile as Keller's head sent flying through the air. Even though he had insane regeneration abilities, those two were convinced that this time he wouldn't escape death. Keller Candon's head was severed from his neck. Blood splattered everywhere. His body fell from the towering fortress wall, slamming into the ground. The earth was dyed bright red, with the last remnants of life fading as Keller let out a faint groan. The two traitors, Tammy and Hydra, looked down gloatingly, admiring their bloody handiwork. Just then, as Tammy was about to turn back to help their father, Hydra seized the moment to stab him in a vital spot. She flipped the script faster than a pancake. After dealing massive fatal damage, she quickly leaped back from her older brother. The crafty Tammy was stunned, seeing their mother's forbidden weapon in Hydra's hand. Crazy Hydra didn't give a damn about rules banning the use of this or that weapon. After all, they are demons anyway. If she wipes out the remaining competition, right now, she will be the sole successor. As Tammy lay dying, he charged forward in a blind rage, determined to drag her down to hell with him, but it was game over. From the moment he was stabbed by that forbidden blade, as they clashed on the rooftop, the life of the younger brother whose head had been severed also began to fade away. He couldn't help but think about how those two were truly diabolical. Before his final breath, the ground where his body lay suddenly gave way. Standing right underneath, Keller was his close maid Jin. She was quick and nimble, catching his head and body and pulling them to safety, away from prying eyes. She roughly reattached the scattered parts together. Trembling with anxiety, Jin did her absolute best to help her master. Meanwhile, the demon army was swarming the portals to carry out a surprise flank attack on the heavens. Unfortunately for them, the humans had already anticipated this tactic. Nevertheless, they still charged forward without flinching. After all, they excel at head-on confrontations. Throwing hands is their jam. There was no turning back for either side. While the soldiers were engaged in a relatively minor skirmish, the main event was heating up, more than ever, when a T-Rex dragon joined the battle. It had been ages since Demon King HL Candon had to deal with a mythical monster like this. Regardless, he only saw this oversized beast as a stray lizard. Using his overwhelming physical strength, he tore the dragon's head off, deleting the beast before it could even land a single hit. Commander Killman was left completely shook. The Phyllite Dragon was supposed to be one of their trump cards. In a total panic, he ordered the Mage Brigade to spam all their skills. After a barrage of mana, that was absolutely insane. The general waited for the smoke to clear, praying they had dealt enough damage to restrain the Demon King. Then the humans felt a collective chill run down their spines. HL Kandun emerged from the wreckage, his body twisting and transforming into something grotesque, emitting an endless source of energy. The final boss had just entered his next phase, and it was fire. General Kuman had read about and studied this form from ancient texts. Throughout history, very few people have witnessed the Demon King's final form and lived to tell the tale. The soldiers looked to their superiors for orders, their bodies shaking, too terrified to move, fighting against such a nightmare. Commander Shriels tried to keep everyone's morale from tanking completely. Even General Kyle felt a paralyzing sense of dread taking over his body. The Demon King realized there was a huge flaw in Keller's seemingly perfect plan. Although they could bring the fight to the heart of the heavenly base, they were essentially trapping themselves in a do-or-die battlefield. As the Demon King, he couldn't let that mistake get in the way of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to flex his aura. He was used to playing a zero-sum game. Then somehow, he felt as though his son had also taken his pride into account. Pushing brainless thoughts aside, he focused on how to slaughter everything in his path. As usual, the best way to solve the problem by bulldozing everything until they're all dead. As he enters his combat stance, General Kuman urgently warns the troops about what's coming. Pushing all petty emotions aside, he charges forward like an absolute unit on the front lines. The final boss's eyes flash with brutality as the battle reaches its climax. Inside the castle's secret basement, Jin is still clutching her master's body, not daring to move a muscle. She prays to whatever higher power is out there to heal her young master Keller. A few days ago, Keller even forced her to take part in some gruesome experiments. He would cut off his own body parts, and his poor servant had to help him put them back together. It was a bit gross, but it was surprisingly effective. Healing a severed arm only took a few seconds. After a few tests on non-vital parts, Keller decided to go all in on the decapitation test. He needed to be sure his super regeneration could save him from the most fatal injuries. He promised Jin he'd take it slow with the beheading. After some terrifying beheading experiments, Keller confirmed he's basically immortal for far. The next step of the plan was to accidentally leak some misinformation to Caldera's close servant. Jin followed orders and spread fake news that Keller was planning to assassinate Caldera while the war broke out and the king was busy fighting the heavens. Naturally, Caldera's servant was pissed. Seizing this reaction, Jin added that the only way to bypass Keller's OP regeneration was a clean decapitation. Back to the present. Jin is currently gritting her teeth in anxiety. The crazy plan went off perfectly. But if her reckless and foolish young master kicks the bucket, then it's all over. Before she could even process it, the wound on his neck had already healed, and his complexion was looking fresh again. Keller really thought he was a goner. Most likely, his recovery speed was slowed down by that dagger, embedded with mana. But he's all good now. It's time to roll out the next part of the plan. Jin was just relieved that her master was still breathing. Unable to hold back her emotions any longer, she gave him a big hug. Having never felt this way in either of his 2 lifetimes, Keller blushed, feeling like his brain was melting. Pushing her away, he tried to refocus on the plan. Before moving on, he generously terminated Jin's slavery contract, once and for all. With that, she would regain her freedom, no longer bound to a life of servitude. This kind gesture deeply moved Jin. Now that the contract was void, he advised her to live the life she'd always wanted, free from any burdens. Watching him walk away with such dignity made the newly freed girl's heart flutter. She remembered the first time they met as children. The boy didn't want a servant. He just wanted a friend. Thinking back on how she'd treated him in the years since made her feel incredibly guilty. To make amends, she begged Keller to take her back as his servant again. Despite his reluctance, she continued to follow him through the castle's secret tunnels, heading back to the battle. General Kuman himself was dying, battered and messy with one eye blinded. The final boss wasn't doing much better either. H.L. Kandon had lost an arm and was severely wounded. Facing vicious attacks from all sides, the final boss still stood his ground alone. Kuman admitted he was no match for such a monster. By his assessment, no human could ever stop this catastrophe. Looking around, H.L. Kandon saw that the human forces were almost completely wiped out. Of course, his own troops were toast too. At this moment, he thought of his children. He accepted the harsh truth that none of them were coming to save him. Instead of wallowing in disappointment, he told himself this had been his own war from the very beginning. With the little mana he had left, he intended to wipe out everything in sight. Meanwhile, Keller and Jin had reached the light at the end of the underground tunnel. Once they stepped out, he would be free from the surveillance of the demon castle. He would truly be free. He was so distracted he almost fell into a trap if Jin hadn't intervened just in time. She leaped in front of him and summoned a magic shield to counter the toxic curses. She hard-carried the situation the moment she caught the scent of blood. With no more reason to hide, the heavenly assassins revealed themselves. They had been lurking in the tunnel to camp any fleeing demons. It was baffling, but they even had this secret exit covered. These assassins were definitely not to be trifled with. Their sole mission was to ensure the final boss's royal bloodline was extinguished. From a safe distance, they took turns spamming spells. Jin struggled to block them with her rapidly deteriorating shield. As the young master's devoted servant, she was determined to put his safety above all else, even her own life. From what Keller remembered, Jin was only good at simple defensive magic. She wouldn't last long. Moreover, she could barely use any offensive spells. She had just saved his life twice, and now she was trying to throw her life away, just so he could escape. Keller grabbed her shoulder with a stern look. Then, he tossed her aside and scolded her for trying to act tough. If she really wanted to be his servant that badly, then she should at least try to stay alive a bit longer. Seeing this, the assassins called him a fool for throwing away his last hope of survival. According to their intel, mid-tier magic was enough to kill Keller, the weakest among the final boss's heirs. What their intel failed to account for was the fact that Keller had always been a timid boy. He had the power, but never the guts to use it. With a new soul at the wheel, that was no longer the case. This meant the intelligence the humans had was completely useless. They actually thought the final boss's son was just a small fry, a total bottom-tier scrub. To prove them wrong, Keller clapped an assassin with a single punch. Next time, they really need to fact-check their sources. Look at that caught red-handed in his grip. Another assassin tried to beg for mercy before getting crushed. Taking down a high-level mage assassin from the heavens is no walk in the park. As the rest of the cloaked gang panicked, Keller unleashed his bloodlust on them. In a desperate situation, there's one move the mages can still use, the Spear of Light spell. With this technique, they can channel their meager mana into a single powerful strike. The downside is if not executed perfectly, it causes a lethal magical backlash. Sensing the raw power of this terrifying spell, Jin tried to beg her master to retreat, but it was too late. Both were struck by countless spears of light. Wounded, Keller panicked as he felt himself becoming completely paralyzed. Jin was also caught by a petrification spell. She apologized for letting her master down yet again. The remaining mages were totally spent, but satisfied that the plan had worked. Drawing their swords, they stepped forward with absolute confidence to finish the job. One of those bastards suggested they should get a reward for all this trouble. Playing around with the restrained maid would be fun before they completed their mission. Showing zero fear, Jin screamed at the human scum. This was the first time Keller had seen the humans of this world. Just like in his past life, humans were still capable of committing disgusting atrocities. Shifting his attention to the final boss's son, the mage coated his blade with mana. Keller was only a dozen steps away from freedom before being decapitated. He couldn't go down like this, right? As the blade swung, the young master felt like time had frozen. He was completely stuck. Something was up or someone was coming. Opening his eyes, he immediately saw his father's avatar standing before him. At first, he thought the demon lord had already finished the battle. If so, his plan to escape was totally cooked. Then H.L. Condon began to have a heart-to-heart with him, in the most sincere way possible. As the demon lord, he had fought countless battles and weighed every single option. From his perspective, Sodera was just a brat who didn't give a damn about his comrades, while TRME had zero ambition to lead the kingdom. Keller was beyond confused and quickly asked what on earth was going on. Ignoring the question, H firmly stated that a demon lord could transfer mana to his bloodline before passing away, even if only for a brief moment. HL had realized Keller was the best candidate to inherit the throne. Knowing this would wreck his plans, Keller tried to refuse, but the choice was no longer his. Once the demon lord decides, it's game over. And so H.L. Condon poured all the mana remaining in his body into his heir and son, Keller Condon. In the blink of an eye, the young master forced to absorb the black orb, which contained boundless power. With eyes full of sorrow, H.L. hoped his son wouldn't mourn his death, but would instead live like a true demon. Back on the main battlefield, the last spark of life left the head, severed from the demon lord's neck. Commander Therios was completely shook. He muttered weakly that the demon lord was gone. General Cuman had to sacrifice himself to make this happen. But that final suicide mission succeeded. Even the surviving soldiers couldn't believe their eyes. They were staring right at the king's corpse. When the reality finally sank in, they all roared in celebration of their victory. These humans had no idea that the king's son was currently assimilating the demon king's power. After merging with the demon lord's mana, the trashy light spears imprisoning him and Jin vanished like they never existed. The mages felt the young master's mana skyrocket and began shaking like leaves. Keller laughed his head off. Actually, everything turned out perfectly in the end. Now that the old man is gone and he has inherited infinite power, everything is finally falling into place. The mages scrambled to find an exit as their mana was completely drained. Looking inside, Keller felt an infinite void of darkness. The power bestowed upon him was too massive to fully grasp at this moment. As the mages backed away in fear, Keller demanded they repeat the filth they had just hurled at Jin. Sure enough, he was a real demon, but humans really loved to snatch that title with their words and actions. With his new buffs, taking out these weak mages was easy as pie. The old man's power was truly unfathomable, but Keller felt that tapping into it put a massive strain on his body. It seems he hasn't been able to fully process it yet. After confirming Jin was okay, the master and servant continued their journey to leave this god-forsaken place. Even though he was a terrible person, Keller still silently thanked him for helping him escape successfully. As the Demon Lord's castle burned behind them, the two walked through a lush green field. For the first time in his life, Keller felt truly free. The possibilities from this moment on were endless. He could go anywhere he wanted, and be whoever he wanted to be. He could live the life he had always desired. As he was soaking in his liberation, a strange power gathered around his body. Before being completely swallowed up, Jin identified the magical fluctuations as a teleportation spell. In a rush, he grabbed Jin's hand to bring her along to wherever this mysterious magic was taking him. Without a moment's hesitation, she resolutely followed him anywhere. The two were headed to a place where magic and innovation thrived, though they didn't know it yet. Upon landing, neither of them knew where the magic had dropped them. Jing initially thought her master was the one who triggered the teleportation spell, but he denied having anything to do with it. He thought it was an automated spell, triggered like an alarm. His father must have prepared it, in case the old man kicked the bucket in battle. Not only were they transported to a strange land, but all of their lingering injuries were also completely healed. By Keller's estimate, they probably spent 3 days in the teleportation void. The Demon Lord must have intentionally set the timing, along with healing magic, for emergencies. Setting up 2 high-level spells at once is not a feat that just anyone can pull off. He might have been a bad guy, but H.L. Khandun still cared about his child's survival. Jin put the pieces of the puzzle together and confirmed that the Demon Lord had kicked the bucket. With a smug smirk, Keller was stoked that his plan went so smoothly. Since the empty throne had been burnt to the ground, Jin suggested that her master take over as the next Demon Lord. Of course, that was the last thing he wanted to do. But Jin, having witnessed the massive growth he'd shown over the past few days, now viewed him as the true successor to the king's legacy. She vowed to serve him with all she had, until he officially ascended the throne no matter what. He gave a helpless sigh, and let her do her thing for now, since he was short on manpower. After walking for a few minutes, they spotted the first clue as to where they had actually landed. Judging by the architecture, it seemed they were in the magic country of Aso, where magical talent is nurtured, solely for the purpose of exterminating demons. As the hub of magic, Aso was currently celebrating the fall of the Hell Demon Lord, praising the light of Tunlua. Both were confused, wondering why the teleportation had dropped him straight into the heart of enemy territory. If they were caught being demons here, a grim fate awaited them. Thinking fast as lightning, Jin used shape-shifting magic to hide her demonic features. She looked like an ordinary pretty young girl. Keller followed suit, turning into a punk kid with a dyed mullet. Knowing nothing about Aso, he asked Jin to give him a quick rundown on this magic country. According to her, Aso is a small island nation located on the eastern border of Tunlua. This place is blessed by the giant sea monster Go, who is lounging nearby. The presence of the sea monster, also allowing magic to develop naturally. The island produces countless powerful mages. More importantly, they have a blood feud against demons under the banner of Tunlua. Keller couldn't wrap his head around why he'd be sent to this country of all places. Naturally, he wanted to bounce from this area as fast as possible. However, making a run for it would require some prep, if they wanted to do it the right way. To achieve his big goals, in this world, magic would be the key tool. There was no better way to level up his knowledge than by immersing himself in a city overflowing with magic. Mysticism was fully integrated into the lives of the Axan people. They even used it in the most ordinary buildings. Some structures were completely dependent on magic. If Keller could study here, he would be able to utilize his game knowledge more effectively. But first, they had to get some grub after drifting in space for 3 whole days. Luckily, Axel was bustling with trade, with food trucks lined up at every corner of the square. After trying the country's famous magical pastries, Jin fell head over heels. Just one food truck was enough to get her addicted as hell. And just like that, the plan to keep a low profile slowly went up in smoke. As the two hopped from one food truck to another, leading the way, Jin sniffed out and tried everything she found interesting. Keller started considering just leaving this girl on the street. Finally, after a whole day of eating, they found a magic bar to chill in. Inside the bar, everyone was celebrating the defeat of the Demon Lord. Leading the party was none other than Commander Shrales of Tonkin, who was covering the tab for the whole house. The drunks in the bar were singing praises of the greatest mages Axel has ever seen, ever produced. In the middle of the crowd were Keller and Jin. After just a few beers, these two lightweights were already hammered, joining the humans to party like there's no tomorrow. Keller was chilling to the max, starting to think that letting loose once in a while is actually pretty Gucci. While they were vibing to the music, the duo caught the eye of the high and mighty commander. For some reason, this odd couple sparked her curiosity. After a few more rounds, Keller had to bolt out of the bar to lose his lunch. He got a bit too carried away and overdid it. Sobering up a little, Jin felt her mood drop, seeing how everyone was celebrating the Demon Lord's death like a massive festival. Suddenly a crowd rushed toward the town square. Turns out they were chasing the T on a brand new S-rank quest that just dropped. Anyone could jump in. The S-rank Demon Lord raid just ended, and the government already set up a new bounty. Curious, Jean dragged the rich kid who was still gagging to see what the drama was about. On the wall there was a wanted poster for the Demon Lord's son with a sky-high price on his head. Looks like this time, the humans are dead set on wiping out the royal bloodline, once and for all. Keller almost let his identity slip out of his mouth. Good thing Jin shut him up just in time. Most people knew that. Keller was the weakest of the Demon Lord's children. That meant they could bag an S-rank reward on a task that was only B-rank difficulty. Every hunter in these parts must be over the moon right now. That's it. The insults from the crowd slapped the drunkenness right out of Keller. Time to hide and survive. Keeping a low profile is the best move now. On the way out of the town square, Jin asked her master what she should call him in public. They couldn't just keep calling him by his real name. After a quick thought, he told her to just call him Chivikpu. Hearing such a whack name with zero vibe, Jin was totally let down. Anyway, that S-rank bounty news wasn't exactly good news for Chai. VKPU scrapped any plan of staying in, also for another second. Overhearing them talk about the new S-rank quest, the tipsy commander curiously butt in drink still in hand. He might not recognize her face, but based on her aura alone, Keller knew this woman was a tough nut to crack. The regulars in the pub even called her the Hope of Aso. She started roasting the Demon Lord's surviving son, and Keller had to bite his tongue and play along with her trash talk. If she caught on to him, it'd be a total game over. Looking at them both with curious eyes, the commander pulled them close arm over their shoulders. She asked point blank if that bastard son of the Demon Lord had caused any trouble. Back at the pub, she had noticed something weird. These two smelled quite different from everyone else. Just as the struggling duo was about to fold, thinking they'd been exposed, the commander threw a curveball. Turns out she only noticed them because they smelled like travelers who hadn't showered in forever. Being surprisingly kind-hearted, she invited them both to her place to wash up and then keep the party going. Keller and Jin exchanged looks of pure panic. Afraid of raising suspicion, they awkwardly accepted the invitation. So they dragged themselves to the house of the Hope of Axel and were forced to stay over. Keller was surprisingly happy when the pretty red-haired lady actually set up a fancy hot bath for them to freshen up. She even threw in a cup of fragrant tea and some top-tier snacks. Judging by the fire taste, he guessed these were also made with magic. From what he remembered, he had always wanted to live in a fantasy world, the magical land of light novels and games. For the first time since being isekai'd to this world, Shigu felt like he was living the dream. He was a bit tipsy, full and clean, plus he had the power of the Demon Lord. This isekai life is pretty fire, isn't it? Meanwhile, in another bathtub, Jin was shaking like the leaf, terrified of being exposed as a demon while sitting next to Commander Shreyas, who was bragging about her massive bathtub. Her tub was big and round, and dripping wet to boot. Do you guys see that? She joked that Jin shouldn't be so restless, or people might mistake her for a demon. She gave a forced laugh and tried to play it cool, to help her relax. The commander's fingers began to move rhythmically, and a sweet fragrance wafted from her hands. Jin immediately caught the scent of holy element essence, the most disgusting smell to a demon. Not only did it reek to their sense of smell, but it also drained a demon's mana. If Jin stayed in this tub for a few more seconds, her disguise magic would vanish instantly. She wanted to call her master for help, but Keller was busy, sipping tea and enjoying his hot bath, breaking her usual habit. The commander opened up to this stranger she'd just met. Shreyas thought all her suffering would disappear once the Demon Lord was gone. Holding her breath, Jin just wanted to escape the nasty stench of the holy essence lingering in the air. Ignoring her obvious discomfort, Shreyas continued saying she was designed and raised to be the ultimate mage. Finally reaching her limit, Jin cut off the trauma dumping and made her getaway. She excused herself for a moment, saying she had to go use the restroom. Shreyas leaned against the edge of the tub with a strange smile, her assets glowing and flushed pink. Jin quickly got dressed and met back up with her master in the hallway of the commander's mansion. He had never felt so relaxed in his life, but now was not the time for such peaceful pleasures. Jin's disguise magic almost went bust, and she was pretty sure the commander was sensing that something was fishy. That holy scent is a complex spell that only high-level mages can pull off. Clueless about how serious the situation was, Keller was still wondering if he could squeeze in one more quick soak before they had to dip from this place. Ignoring Jin's anxiety, the commander covered up the tub and asked her guests if they wanted to go for another round with her. Jin tried to dodge her scrutinizing gaze. Srias summoned a magical orb and promised to whip up some drinks and snacks using food magic. Hooked on the magical food, that rich boy was easily persuaded to go for round 2 with the feisty commander. They had no idea that a group of mages was starting to gather outside the mansion. They had received a tip-off about the presence of demons inside. According to some sources, it wasn't just any demon, but the demon lord's son himself. This was a once-in-a-lifetime chance to hit the jackpot. In the living room, Srias was talking up her holy water drink. Both demon guests in disguise had to drink it without flinching, no matter how uncomfortable and burning the sensation was. With a sad expression, Srias went back to the topic she was discussing with Jin in the bath earlier, and so her trauma dumping continued. She had joined the squad and trained like hell just to kill the demon lord. She had countless scars to prove her grueling training. She must have hidden those scars with magic, as Jin hadn't seen them before. Actually, she had even lost an eye, with a scar running down the right side of her face. It's a nasty scar from having her eye gouged out. The commander was used to hiding her flaws with magic, because seeing them would trigger the pain of her past. When she was just a bratty kid, she and other children her age were brainwashed to hate the demon lord. They formed a special squad, with the sole purpose of toppling Heokandun. They were taught to endure all kinds of agony for the sake of the mission. Gradually, she was brainwashed into that cult, drinking their Kool-Aid, before realizing her entire life had been sacrificed for a single goal. Clearly, all she got in return were these scars. Curious, she quickly approached Keller, climbing on top of him and pulling up his shirt to check if he had any scars. As she saw and stroked his smooth, flawless, and scar-free skin, a wild, crazed look appeared in her eyes. Jin's alarm bells were ringing loudly, and so were Keller's. Srias's touch wasn't just unexpected. It was making his disguise magic fade away. Finally, the beauty whispered in his ear, asking point-blank, "Are you one of those filthy demons?" Now it was clear as day that she had known who they were for a long time. Suddenly, a swarm of cowardly rats started pouring out of her fireplace. These rats were quickly toasted by some uninvited guests, a mob of mages from Axel. Looking at the situation, it was obvious. The commander had led them here just to ambush the undercover duo. Surprise, surprise. The group of mages didn't even pay attention to either of them. Their eyes were glued to the scar on Srias's eye. They claimed a message from Srias, informed them that the hope of Axel was hiding her true identity. Srias of Token was actually a demon infiltrating Axel. After being exposed as a demon, she didn't give a damn at all. Keller started to feel mind-fucked by these consecutive plot twists. These mages aren't here to hunt him down. They're gunning for the hero, who supposedly took out the demon lord. Now there's no point in hiding her identity anymore. Srias used dark magic to summon her staff. She flat-out confessed that she was the one who leaked her own secret. Since she's already outed herself as a demon, there's no need to hold back. The mages fired off their most powerful spells all at once. She might be a demon, but she's also the elite mage of Tonkian. Dozens of scrub mages from Axel wouldn't stand a chance against her even if she's solo. She wasn't at all afraid of getting hit by those spells. Jin begged her master to get out of the way. Before they could even twitch, a dark explosion engulfed the living room. Concentrated mana energy erupted all at once. As the black smoke dissipated, master and servant were still completely unharmed. Surprisingly, Srias easily neutralized that disastrous-looking, magical clusterfuck without even breaking a sweat. The mysterious commander of Tonkin had just protected them. Srias knew they were demons from the jump. They couldn't hide anything from her sharp nose. To clear up their confusion, she officially introduced herself as Srias Kadun, daughter of the demon lord Heo Kadun. After that major truth bomb was dropped, the young master and servant were speechless. To save time, he summoned a small mana orb to explain everything through memory transfer magic. Suddenly, both of their visions were taken over by a flashback. The scene showed the demon lord and a trusted assistant. It was the day they successfully cracked the code and created a demon who could hide their horns and demonic powers. On that day, the little crown prince admired that absolute king beyond measure. Sire, he said that his blood flowed in her veins, and she would carry his name as his own daughter. Since birth, she was just one of countless lab rats, raised in total secrecy. Every day was a living hell, under the watch of brutal demons. They forced them to undergo agonizing experiments. All she could do was grit her teeth and endure it, waiting for a brighter day. Eventually, all the other children in that secret compound died off one by one. She was the only survivor left at that time. She thought she'd be following them to the grave soon, but her destiny changed. When Hell adopted her as a daughter, her little heart was filled with honor and pure joy, eager to serve her great father. That was also the day she received her name. Along with the name came a mission. She would play the role of a mole and infiltrate Paradise to milk them for info. For her father, the demon lord, she was willing to do anything. and so her infiltration began. She pretended to be an injured, innocent child, wandering near Axel. The mages thought she had been attacked by demons and rushed her in for treatment. From that moment on, her life as spy for the Demon Lord officially began. Gradually, she climbed the ranks of Teluga as an Axel mage. The path up was incredibly grueling, but she crushed everything in her way. Finally, she became qualified to join the strongest army to ever exist, the Tonkian Elite Force. 15 years after infiltrating human society, she was finally able to see her father again. This time it was on the battlefield. All she wanted to do was run up and hug him, but she couldn't. She knew she had to endure and wait until everyone else, except General Killman, everyone else was dead. Srias was stationed on the flank, and her secret role was to slowly pick off the Tonkian squad using her magic. That way, she could back up her father until General Killman got what was coming to him. Once Tonkian was wiped out, she could call her mission a success and head back to the castle with her daddy. She wanted nothing more than to start a new life by her father's side, to finally carry her true name, Srias Kadun. However, the battle didn't go down the way she thought it would. The general and the demon lord praised each other for exceeding expectations. As an apex predator, Hell found it quite annoying to be complimented by a mere human. Finally, General Killman pulled out his final trump card, a final strike containing everything he had, the heavenly spear Mai Tai. It reflected all of his efforts. The demon lord summoned the Hellfire Magnesia. The collision of these two ultimate techniques burned with a fierce and brilliant intensity. Srias felt an ominous premonition. In that moment, she heard her father's voice clearly. For the first time in 15 years, he called his daughter by her name. In his final moments, Heo Kadun gave her one last order, to serve the next demon lord just as she had served him. Protect that bloodline until the very end. As tears of grief began to fall, the collision between heaven and hell swallowed up everything in its path. As the nuclear-level blast settled, the demon lord's severed head lay motionless, staring at her father's lifeless body. Srias couldn't suppress her emotions anymore. After witnessing the demon lord's death, reinforcements arrived to clean up the mess, and she had no choice but to keep up the act and return to Teluga. All the while she was mourning for the loss of the most important person in her entire life. While people from all over the 6 continents were partying their hearts out, for the first time in millennia, humanity finally had the chance to flex. From that point on, Srias decided to retire and move to Aso, a place she considered her second home. She wanted to start over from scratch, with a clean slate. Aso would be her home base, while she plotted revenge for her father's death. The plan began by wiping the Magic Nation off the map. Jin was conflicted and Keller felt a total buzzkill. He thought he'd finally escaped his crazy siblings. But nope, who knew? Even if they weren't blood-related, having another sibling just meant another massive headache. Snapping him out of his drifting thoughts, Srias declared that she wouldn't force Keller and Jin to team up with her as demon accomplices. But she was certain that Axel was a core threat to the whole demon race. The more they let this magic hub prosper, the bigger problem it would become. And her younger brother, the last hope of the demons Keller Kadun, would be dead soon. Her words made a lot of sense. Even in the game, Jigu remembered the crucial role of mages during wartime. If they just left Axel alone, they would keep honing their magic, just to take his head. Speaking of mages, those first responders were in a total panic. They were worried the blast would attract more attention, and someone else would steal the credit for their discovery. So in one final decisive blow, they dumped all their mana into one shot. Thinking back, these shady mages were sure the 2 youngsters behind Srias were just civilians, yet they still attacked, without even thinking about collateral damage. Boiling with rage, Keller dropped his disguise. He bared his horns and fangs, and declared he'd defend himself to the death. Upon sensing the surge of pure energy emanating from him, Srias's eyes widened in shock as she realized, without a shadow of a doubt, she could feel the power of her daddy simmering inside this young man. That night, the 2 siblings waged an endless war against the world's magic hub. In the human world, to Jin's untrained eyes, humans in Jin's untrained eyes, it probably looked like a one-sided massacre. Srias considered Aso her second home, so she knew its layout like the back of her hand. She kicked off a campaign of absolute destruction by razing and burning down key government facilities, followed by the Magic Academy. Keller utilized the Demon King's mana of the Demon King that he inherited to keep up with his sister's pace. Together, the 2 of them beat down those powerful big shots who were getting high at the festival. They were absolutely wrecking them like it was nothing. Without even blinking, it was top-tier carnage. The siblings went so hard they overthrew the entire magic kingdom of Axun crazy stuff. The whole place, built on a foundation of magic, burned brightly all through the night. The smell of human BBQ wafted everywhere. The surviving mages cursed the demons for destroying their sanctuary. Actually, Srias wanted to clap back at them too. This was simply payback for what humanity had done to the demon world. Axon was just the warm-up, though. Srias already had her sights on the Yap Squad and the Toluca Empire next. It's your turn next. She was determined to make everything vanish. Given the scale of this mission, it sounds a lot like Mission Impossible, doesn't it? After finishing off Aso, Keller asked for permission to dip and get away from his mischievous sister. Before he could ghost her, she confessed she already knew the true identity of the man whose body he was borrowing. She'd known all along. Hiding it any longer would be pointless. When he finally came clean, Srias was like, oh snap. Turns out she was just bluffing. She wasn't even 100% sure, but since the cat's out of the bag, Srias explained that she wasn't the Demon King's daughter, in the traditional sense. She's more like a glitch created by the blood aura. Because of that, she fully acknowledged Keller's royal bloodline, even though some of his traits made him look not so royal. Srias was actually created after Keller was born, which makes him her older brother. After hearing her out, the young prince was stunned. Assuming he'd want to avenge their father too, she officially invited him to join her quest. Little did she know revenge was the last thing on his mind right now. Good grief, the guy just wanted to run away from home. Sensing her brother's salty attitude, the hyperactive sister reminded Keller that he was the sole surviving bloodline of the king. Terrified this pick-me girl might flip out, Jin whispered to his master to just play along to stay safe. At this point, Keller felt like he had no way out. He had to just roll with it. Hearing his decision, Srias totally chilled out. She flashed a huge grin and skipped toward their next destination. While playing his part, Keller planned to milk his mutant sister for all the dark magic cells she had mastered. Vengeance was just the perfect excuse to buy time, while gaining a powerful ally. Neither of them knew a mage had survived the attack, and was on his way to Toluca to snitch, and so the capital received the urgent intel from the survivor. The tea quickly reached the ears of the greedy king of Toluca. The news that Commander Srias was a demon in disguise and that Axon was destroyed with Prince Keller Kadun's help left the king shook. Missing the Demon King's descendant in Axun was bad enough, but now the prince had joined forces with a traitorous commander. But powerful. It'll be a total disaster if this gets out. The king is more worried about looking like a clown than the lives lost or the destroyed infrastructure. Seriously. Steak knife in hand, the king ordered a hit-on Keller Kadun and Srias before the dynasty gets cancelled. His advisor, Hayden, swore on his life to finish the mission. Displayed in the king's throne room is the severed skull of the Demon King, a flex of absolute authority, even in death. Kadun is still a thorn in Toluca's side. Fueled by a deep hatred for demons, Hayden vowed to wipe out every last drop of demon blood left in the world. The loyal advisor reached out to a man named General Kylian and his squad to handle the situation. Ask anyone in the kingdom who the best knight is, and everyone will say Killian in a heartbeat. He's probably the only one capable of carrying out such an urgent and difficult task. Deep in a rugged mountain range, a man, covered in battle scars, was fuming upon hearing that his younger brother Kuman had fallen in battle. According to reports, Kuman sacrificed himself to take down the Demon King. Killian didn't care about the details. Bottom line, he died at the hands of demons. The kingdom's messenger used this info to persuade the knight to hunt down Keller Kadun for Toluca. Killian couldn't care less about the kingdom. Since his brother was killed by a demon, he'd exterminate every demon alive, starting with the Demon King's bloodline. Killian's cold declaration signaled the end for Keller Kadun. Cut to the Demon King's son looking shook at a massive jumbo-sized meat skewer. Right in front of him, Mommy Srias's appetite was no joke. Even Keller's servant was stunned that she could eat that much without getting fat. Every girl's dream body for real. She even has her own theory, eat fast poop. Fast and you won't gain weight. It's like she's been enlightened by the wisdom of the mages. Jin was stuffing her face with meat like crazy. Meanwhile, our guy was trying to figure out where Srias's loyalty truly lies. He's glad that for once she's not like his other siblings, who are just waiting to end him every time they meet. Plus, he's worried she might hold a grudge since he's the legitimate heir, and she isn't. To be sure about where they stand, he asked Srias if she hated him. After all, he's the biological son and she's not. After hearing that, Srias snapped, growling that she'd take him out right then and there. If it were just about that. Talk about animal instincts. But because he shares their father's blood, she could never bring herself to hate him. Besides, since he carries their father's bloodline, her only goal now is to protect him at all costs. Unlike his actual siblings, this woman actually wants to protect him. She promised to put her life on the line, to make sure nothing bad happens to our guy. Now that's the definition of true loyalty. Her words were so sincere it made him fall head over heels. Jin's eyes went wide when she saw Keller blushing right in front of her. Sensing her future boyfriend was about to be snatched, the girl quickly handed him a skewer. Hey, that's not what I meant, but I know the comment section is already blowing up. Anyway, Srias showed her loyalty by promising to protect him until her last breath. But instead of being touched, bro was a bit salty and worried. Other than that, the whole group suspected that the situation in Axon would soon reach the ears of every major nation. That means tons of demon hunters will be on their way to wipe out this threat. Basically, staying here is a death sentence. That's why the red-haired mage wants everyone to move to a safer spot, Keller argued back. He figured this was a great place to crash for the night. After all, with a little effort, they could turn this place into a secret fortress and make it an impenetrable stronghold. And so, with Steve's help, he got down to business. Their first move was to terraform the land to create a secret fortress. Next, during some downtime, he reviewed what he'd learned from his battles. Remembering how much mana he had burned through, Keller started meditating, realizing he needs to rest as much as possible after using up all his energy. His father was the same way. He also required massive amounts of recovery time after a fight. As for Shreya, she burns even more mana than him, which is why her recovery time is longer than his. Eventually, both were able to recover over time and protect themselves with the help of their newly built secret fortress. In the next scene, we switch to the enemy's perspective. The second Torkin squad is known as the White Torkin, and this unit boasts the world's strongest knight, Killian. The king was over the moon, seeing these elite warriors gather to finish off the remaining demons. He's hyped to see them show up. This is the Goat squad. But Killian acted like he didn't care, and after just a short training session, he's even more cracked than before. His friend believed the former general, Killian, would be proud of Killian's progress if he were still alive. This old dude accidentally brought up a sensitive topic, so he got a love slap right away. Adria being Adria classic as always. Killian's subordinates started to doubt if they should keep following the king's orders blindly. After all, killing the Demon King's son, Keller Kadun still didn't satisfy their craving for revenge. Killian apologized to Kanka, saying he had to show Curly the goods first. Inside the palace, Killian faced the trophy, the severed head of the Celestial Kingdom's ruler. The Demon King is toast, but Killian is still salty about losing his big bro. His teammates each had their own way of reading the room. Meanwhile, Curly reported to the captain that their tracking charms would work on each head. Then the Great White Sorceress prepared her spells, reasoning that a bloodstain like this is enough for her to trace the lineage. Killian coldly told the Demon King's head that he would personally take pleasure in slaughtering the rest, and hoped that old man Ka would witness it all from hell. The next morning, boss Lady Shreya was barking orders like a pro. She wanted the crew to get down to business immediately, because she was wary of the arrival of the strongest squad, Torkian. Even Jin was curious about those guys. The red-haired sorceress explained that in Tonoa, no one believed the Vanguard was capable of taking down the Demon King. Basically, they were just guinea pigs for testing. The high-tier lineup, composed of the most top-tier unbeatable warriors and actual demon-slaying machines, is the White Torkian special squad led by Killian, the younger brother of the late grumpy General Kuman. The man who finished the Demon King was actually weaker than his brother, even if Shreya didn't want to admit it. The White Torkin squad completely outclasses Kuman's team, to the point where no one dares to even compare them. Just hearing about it gives me the chills. Keller was visibly anxious while Jin looked uneasy. She didn't know if they stood a chance against Talua. Shreya explained that the White Torkian squad was trained in isolation, so it would take time for them to regroup and return. While waiting, they had to deal with Talua and end the battle as soon as possible. But it's not going to be a piece of cake. Talua is way more massive than Axel, so even Keller understood that relying on luck would be a total fail. Since they couldn't count on luck, they had to take action. He figured that with the bounty hanging over them, the White Torkin squad might have already regrouped. Little did they know he hit the nail on the head. As we saw in the previous scene, Keller explained that for the three of them to just dive into attacking Talua would be pure suicide. For now, recruiting must be the priority. To build their own army, establish a base, and counterattack that way. Jin found this idea to be pretty cool, Keller added, saying an entire army would be more than enough to smoke a single squad, even if it was the strongest one in the 6 continents. Furthermore, their base wouldn't fall, even if Talua's troops swarmed in. Keller planned to build the most beast mode dungeon on Earth. His plan left Shreya speechless, while Jin was completely blown away. The issue is they shouldn't rush into battles where the chances of winning are slim to none, because if they did, the outcome would be just like their father's end. So the right way to deal with this situation is to build the most fortified dungeon to stand against the White Torkin squad, then use it to wage war on Talua. This was such an impressive approach that even Shreya had to admire it, and she began to develop a deep respect for the guy and his incredibly creative strategic mindset. Meanwhile, our boy was just happy that he could whip up a solid plan while under such pressure. Shreya excitedly got to work on recruiting troops first, especially since she has enough connections to handle this. Jin and Shreyas seemed hyped for the battle, even though they probably shouldn't have been. But Keller was quite surprised that both of them loved his idea so much. For now, this is the best way to buy time. He intended to create a world of his own, where no one could mess with him. The map he could never draw in the real world could now be brought to life in this world, building the life he's always wanted. Turning to the red-haired sorceress, he asked Shreyas if she knew any trustworthy demons. Luckily, she had a bunch of them in her contacts. Keller explained that they needed someone with profound geographical knowledge. Hearing that, Shreyas realized she knew someone exactly like that. And so, their next trip was to meet this mysterious character. On the way there, Keller was taught Axon magic by Shreyas and learned more about the world. However, this magic seems complicated and isn't something that can be mastered overnight. Luckily, thanks to the effects of the Demon King's blood, his adaptability has increased, and he can replicate the spells of so much faster than usual. Keller was stoked to be learning so quickly, and with every bit of progress he made, he felt he was getting closer and closer to his goal. 4 days went by in a flash, and their journey was nearing its end. Jin was surprised that a demon would live in such a godforsaken place, but Shreyas explained that this place wasn't always like this. It was only because of those Torkin guys that it fell into such a pathetic state of ruin. Sensing a powerful presence approaching, Shreyas ordered them both to stand still, no matter what happened. Right in front of them, a mighty demon touched down. Thinking the Torkin squad had come to trash the place again, he lunged forward and drove a spear into Shreyas' heart. But she was so badass she didn't even flinch, just taking the hit like an absolute champ. She understood that. Most of the demons still didn't know she even existed. Jin, on the other hand, was freaking out, clueless as to why the sorceress would just let herself get stabbed, without coming clean about who she was. Keller ordered the servant to keep quiet, telling her to just give them some space. The demon and his lackeys wondered why Shreyas didn't fight back, assuming she was looking down on them, like they weren't even worth her time. Apologizing for everything the Torkin squad had done, Shreyas was happy to take the heat from their rage if it helped them cool off. I swear she's my absolute favorite character. The demon was shocked to see a human performing a ritual, symbolic of his own kind. Shreyas finally confessed the truth, saying she was actually one of them, and apologizing for her actions. This left the group even more shook, because they remembered it all too well. The last time she showed up with the Torkin squad. Keller finally spoke up, declaring that he is the last surviving child of the Demon King Kandon, and with his sheer authority, he backed up her words. His terrifying magic alone was more than enough to convince them that he was indeed the Demon King's son. They immediately knelt to show the respect he deserved, performing the ritual of their kind. The demons fully supported the king's successor, and so far, their recruitment mission was going smoothly. Shreyas was glad that everyone else also respected him as the rightful heir to the throne. Meanwhile, Keller started to believe he might actually command a real army in this lifetime. The arrival of the great Demon King's son was celebrated with hype as the earth demons chanted in support of him. The elders were overjoyed to see him, and were even ready to follow any of his commands. Keller looked around, observing the magical architecture being used. The structures differed from those used at the castle and in Osso. What was impressive was that the city had no magic infused into the buildings. Everything was made from raw materials, and the city's geographical location was also perfect for their missions. He didn't expect such a massive city to be hidden so deep underground. After all, the earth demons rarely ever come to the surface. He turned to the sorceress, agreeing with her thoughts. They really needed the help of the earth demons. Shreyas also suggested recruiting a perfect warrior to be part of their army. Keller was intrigued by her words, while Shreyas continued saying that the Torkin squad had discovered this city on their way to the Demon King's castle. And as soon as he found out, Kuman flew into a rage, declaring that he wouldn't allow any demon to exist. So he began to ruthlessly slaughter the demons, using the soldiers of Talua. By his command, the forest above the underground city was completely torched. This pushed the earth demons to the brink of extinction. But then something happened. A warrior stood up, swearing to be the voice of justice. He claimed that humans were too cruel for killing even children, who didn't even know how to fight. This warrior, full of pride, didn't want any of Kuman's men to get past him and touch the children. After seeing a demon risk his life to protect the little ones, Kuman developed a sense of respect and asked for the warrior's name. Letting out a pained, thunderous roar, the son of the earth demons replied. General Kuman was like, "Man, this hurts to watch. Too bad you weren't born human in this life." But wait, talk about a plot twist. General Kuman suddenly stopped the music, telling his troops to put the massacre on hold. The priority was to head straight to the Demon King's castle first. Douglas thought he was watching a comedy, while Shreyas was moved to tears by the fact that this demon's courage alone saved the whole tribe. Douglas is a total goat. How could anyone not love him? Anyway, that's how the Earth Demons got their happy ending, surviving to see another day. Shreyas recounted how he held his ground so firmly. The story was so touching that Jin totally developed a crush on him. In the meantime, Keller was sitting there in deep thought, reflecting on life. He was brainstorming how to get Douglas to join his ranks. While celebrating, he summoned Douglas to meet up ASAP. Too bad Douglas is notoriously stubborn. Even the Earth Demon boss said to just drop it and find another war god to replace him instead. But Keller still locked in the deal, insisted on meeting Douglas no matter what. And so we get a heated face-off, just like the Patriarch said. Douglas flat out refused to take orders from the Demon King's son. He argued that no matter how high his rank is, he has no obligation to obey a mere successor. Keller thought the whole thing was a long shot. The prospect of forcing Douglas to join in, after hearing it, the proud god of war declared he'd rather die than ever change Keller's mind. For some reason, Douglas is stuck in this city. The guy explained that he's lived here his whole life. Protecting his homeland is a sacred duty. At this point, Keller finally realized that the rumors about his stubbornness were true. Douglas apologized for his aggressive attitude. It was a total scam. Lianzhihu remembered when recruiting the Oros army in the game was an epic fail. He thought, why bother forcing it? Since the man is already dedicated to his ideals, Keller wandered around outside, praising the city's architecture for being even more fire than expected. Now he just wanted to find someone who knows the Earth Demons inside out to show him the ropes. Meanwhile, Jin and Siles were acting like total clowns, being zero help. Keller got annoyed because those two were just loafing around. Fast forward to the scene, where this general also got wasted after recklessly trying the beer. Absolutely top tier. The three of them shared a single brain cell talking trash at the table, while the Earth Demons were shook, jaw dropped, seeing their leader letting loose. After that, they were hauled back to their rooms to rest. Keller fell into a deep sleep, completely unaware that a group of demons was plotting an assassination. He had 5 hands, 5 axes. Douglas flipped the script, intending to finish off the Demon King's successor. On charges of cowardice, he swung his axe ready to throw down. You'd think our guy was a goner, but not a chance. Douglas froze when he saw his target, dodged a fatal blow. In a nail-biting situation, Keller narrowly escapes and closes the deal. Finally, we understand the situation. He bounces out of bed, while the rebels are trying to take him out for being a coward afterwards. We get to see Keller's inner monologue. When he first met Douglas, he wondered why that warrior was forging weapons that were so out of place compared to the stuff in the blacksmith shop. And those chains looked tiny. Definitely wouldn't fit the Oros. As he walked around, he had a vague feeling, realizing he was being tailed. Then he became even more vigilant and quickly discovered a wall covered in magical spells inside. This magical cloak was so subtle that if he hadn't inherited the Demon King's power, he definitely wouldn't have spotted it. He also remembered this part in Steve's story, where Douglas gallantly protected the Dark Elf kids. But when zooming into the city, he didn't see a single Dark Elf around. And just like that, everything started to click in his head. And now Keller is ready to spam his skills. Unfatal strike, wiping out everyone in the way. As Douglas hits the floor, he confirms with the warrior that Douglas never told the general he wanted to protect the Dark Elves. Instead, Douglas only said he wouldn't hand them over to them. This means this brave and proud warrior actually didn't care about protecting the kids from the very beginning. He just didn't want them taken away. Keller's cold judgment makes that scumbag turn pale. Stunned into silence, Keller fires off a loaded question. Should he remove the magic spell that he put so much grind into setting up? In the next scene, the Demon King's son exposes Douglas as a traitor. The guy they worship as a great warrior turned out to be nothing but a lying clown. Furthermore, Keller also asserted that every Earth Demon was a part of this scheme. This means they've been using Douglas to slowly pick him apart in secret. Even the thick-skinned Patriarch was shocked that Douglas failed the mission. Keller flew into a rage, ordering the Earth Demons to freeze right there, or else he'd take out their precious warrior. The Earth Demons showed their true colors and called Keller a coward, even though just a moment ago they were cheering for him. Facing the magical barrier that he had sensed earlier, Keller ordered the hostage to open the door immediately. Left with no other choice, Douglas unlocked the door, revealing a dark truth. The elves he was looking for and their children were huddling together in fear. Imprisoned, Keller was horrified to see them starving, and in a much worse state than he ever imagined. Reese and Jean also came nosing around to check the situation. Confirming his suspicions, they were even more shocked to see the fate of the Dark Elves. Our boy ordered the mage to grab a Dark Elf from the group and copy their memories for him using memory transfer magic. That's my vibe right there. So the girl got to work, saying the memories wouldn't be super vivid, but they'd be solid enough. Keller waited for her spell. She cast the spell on each hand, and the memory transfer process finally began. These memories come from the perspective of a dark elf. He called this place Hell on Earth. And just a quick heads up, that person is a guy, but I bet his looks totally had you guys tripped up. His mother was forced to give birth, and every female dark elf shared the same fate. The newborns would quickly be hand-picked by human nobles and carried away forever. Young elves were sold for exorbitant prices, helping the earth demons rake in the cash from their side hustle. Sometimes adult elves, captured from the outside world, would tell them stories, how beautiful the world out there truly is, with stunning horizons and crystal-clear ocean waves. The food is straight fire and the beauty is infinite. But that's only for the outside world. You see, folks, the children born here only know nothing but exploitation. The dark elves are born for one single purpose, and their lifelong dream is for their children to be free, so that at least the future generations don't share the same fate. After fully experiencing the heartbreaking pain from the woman's memories, Keller flies into a rage. He starts roasting them hard, calling out those scumbag earth demons for running such a horrific operation in the underground city. His anger goes off the charts, letting him give Douglas an uppercut that makes his jaw see stars. But that's probably nothing compared to the pain the dark elves had to endure. The warrior gets sent flying into a tree trunk. Reese reacts exactly like Keller. Meanwhile, that bastard confesses they've been trafficking dark elves since the beginning. After all, they are a rare species, hunted by the human aristocracy, known for their love of nature. The dark elves helped them live in places that provided them with peace and safety. But this piece of trash thinks that makes them targets and a reason to become breeding stock. Hearing those disgusting words, Reese just wants us to take this demon out. Douglas yells that they couldn't do anything to fend for themselves once the Demon King bit the dust. So, they had to grit their teeth and do this job to survive. But Keller, oh man, his blood is really boiling now. He's remembering his own miserable past life, the hardships he had to endure from his family. Like the pain and misery that these kids are going through are way more intense than the life that he has lived through. He refuses to just sit there like an NPC at a time like this, especially when such horrific things are unfolding right before his eyes. He summons Shreels and Jin. He believes that it's time for the squad to finish Kuman's job, for this order is straight up chilling. But even the red-haired mage nods along with this approach because she's totally sold on it, convinced they were traitorous monsters from the jump, daring to sell out their own people. Keller is done playing around and is determined to completely erase the earth demons. The dirt demons here. On the flip side, Douglas calls for backup from his goons. Clearly their numbers totally dwarf this trio. The battle actually my bad. The earth demon massacre kicks off with Jin, tanking all the incoming hits, while Reese unleashes her cracked magic, screaming about their betrayal. Against the very bloodline of the great Demon King, the earth demons trash-talk our boy for being soft, claiming he's not fit to lead their kind. But Jin, the Master's most loyal servant, calls out this total nonsense, since Keller is destined to be the new Demon King, whether they like it or not. Speaking of our boy, he's popping off, spamming skills like a total boss. Realizing this isn't a joke anymore, but a part of his life now, he needs to change things with his power. Giving Douglas's pathetic face a kick, that was straight up devastating. He refuses to back down. Meanwhile, the Dark Elves are just stunned. No one has ever fought for them before. The person from earlier realizes they have to help these people win this battle. Even though others try to stop Ut from stepping in, he believes this is their only shot. To escape this living hell, they have to act now. The word misery echoed in their heads. Memories of being brutally abused were triggered. It was a traumatic reaction from Oti. Kayla noticed this and turned to the pain. Glad asked him if he could hear the cries of agony that he had inflicted upon innocent people. He would make sure those Ut demons suffered the same fate. Sensing things were going south, Douglas decided to go big or go home and swallowed a mysterious berry. In reality, it was a type of magical earth ore, and he advised each of the Ott demons to swallow one. This was a battle for survival, so they quickly followed Douglas's instructions. Jin was shook. She had only ever read about earth ore in myths and folklore. Meanwhile, the Demon King's son had no clue what it did. The sorceress revealed that by swallowing the earth ore, the life expectancy of the Ott demons would be drastically shortened, but their power would increase dozens of times over. Now our team is truly cooked. The Ott demons began to transform at an alarming rate. Their bodies shifted to kill the Demon King's son. Douglas now looked like a mindless monster. As he roared his declaration of war, Kayla showed clear signs of concern, realizing that their magical energy had indeed been amplified. In response, he couldn't even use the full power of the Demon King. Not in his current state. Douglas swung his arm wildly to deliver a haymaker, aimed right at our brother. Kayla understood the gravity of the situation, and at this speed, he feared that the attack would leave him severely injured. But fortunately, a surge of wooden vines erupted from the ground, stopping the Ott demon's attack and pinning him right in his tracks. The one who created this attack wasn't Shreus, but a dark elf who refused to be tortured anymore. Vowing never to face such a fate again, Ut's bravery strikes fear into the hearts of his own allies, those who think he is putting his own life at risk. Douglas is livid and threatens to torture the dark elf to death. But that won't be happening anytime soon, not while Keller is here, who declares that he will never allow another dark elf to be tortured again. His sharp attack completely pierces through the Ot demon's body. Then, remembering Ut's name, Taylor confesses that he has developed feelings for this dark elf. Douglas feels salty about being betrayed, giving zero thoughts to his own horrific actions. He thinks he did the dark elf a favor by raising him, but now he's triggered and wants to kill them all. Keller didn't expect this guy to be able to unlock even greater power. Fueled by his pure rage, his body grows larger as he throws a powerful punch and slaps our brother with all his might. The impact sends him slamming into the wall while Keller stands frozen in shock at how powerful the Ot demon magic stone can actually make an Ot demon become. Douglas isn't done yet. He targets Ut next, vowing to kill the dark elf no matter what. The monster grabs him by the neck, promising to rip the dark elf's head off. His hand crushes down, putting the dark elf through a world of hurt. Keller is horrified by Douglas's state, who is now more focused on killing Ut than assassinating the Demon King's son as originally intended. The dark elf groans in pain, while Keller senses the critical situation and needs to create a long-range attack. With his power, he searches deep within himself to find something that could help him save a life. Suddenly, the dark elf entered a spiritual state within a pitch-black void. In this void, a dark shadow mocked him, reminding him that this was supposed to be his own consciousness. Taylor demanded to know the identity of the shadow, who claimed that if he cared to ask a better question, it should be about how he could save his friend's life. Even though time had slowed down significantly within his consciousness, they still needed to act fast. Recalling Ut's condition, Keller pleaded for a way out to save the dark elf. The dark entity inside his mind stated that he wasn't ready to handle his father's full power. However, eventually, his body and mind would work in perfect sync to handle the Demon King's power. Keller cut to the chase. He didn't want to hear long-winded explanations. When a life was hanging by a thread, the dark entity revealed that there was one ability he could use. Before leaving, the dark entity dropped a bombshell. It revealed Kayla's name from his past life, and his old world name was Kang Chi-Woo. Whatever this thing was, it seemed to know about our brother's past life. Before Kayla could fully wrap his head around it, he snapped out of the void and focused on the weapon manifesting in his hand. It was his father's fire arrow, the very thing he needed for a long-range shot. Roaring at Ut to brace himself, Kella unleashed his devastating projectile. Douglas was shook at the beam of light rushing toward him while the dark elf seized the opportunity to pour his magic into creating a wooden shield. Kella declared an end to Douglas's reign of terror when the projectile obliterated the Ot demon. The pain it caused was overwhelming, forcing the Ot demon to scream for help. Luckily, Keller saved the dark elf just in time. With a direct hit, Douglas turned to ash, and he was definitely swallowed by the blue flames. Meanwhile, Keola wondered about the identity of the mysterious figure he had met within his consciousness. Anyway, aside from Douglas, they still had plenty of other Ot demons to deal with, starting with those targeting Jin and Sirius. Unfortunately, the mage couldn't use her best magic due to the limited space, but Ko was there to bail them out. As he utilized his father's power, he unleashed several arrows from afar, each arrow taking down Ot demons in a clean sweep. The mage was seriously impressed, seeing his magic finally take form and grow even more powerful. Now he has added a new technique to his arsenal, power he can truly be proud of. In the next scene, we witness the end of the battle. The Ot demons are totally toast. Trios didn't expect the gems to be even more OP than the rumors, while Jin was shocked to discover that they drained the Ot demon's life force to gain power. They are still shrouded in mystery, so they will be kept for further investigation in the future. As for the remaining Dark Elves, Keller officially declared them free from their shackles. He wanted nothing from them but to live their lives in freedom from now on. The word freedom felt foreign and surreal to the Dark Elves, who had been bound in chains their whole lives. Keela permitted them to leave the city and search for their own freedom. Finally, the dream of securing freedom for their children has been fulfilled. Paying their respects to Keela and his allies, the elves bowed in gratitude. Unfortunately, they couldn't utilize the Ot demons as part of their combat force. Trials was let down to find out that she and Killiman were essentially played by those backstabbing clowns. Marin remarked that there was nothing they could do, in this case, other than to accept reality. As for Keller, he took a special interest in Ut. When he asked the Dark Elf if he had been taken from the outside world, the Dark Elf confirmed this. So Keller went on to assume that Ut had no family left to live with. That fact was also confirmed by the Dark Elf with a weak, "Yeah," Sadly, our boy then invited him to their group, offering him the chance to be their scout, to help navigate the terrain, but insisted that he wasn't an Ott demon, and he wasn't even good with directions. With a heavy heart, he said he wouldn't be any help to the squad. Keller reassured him that Ut is a dark elf beloved by nature itself, and he had impressed the Demon King's son by showing such guts. When facing danger, those two reasons were more than enough for him to earn their trust. So Keller asked him once more to join them. Blown away by his words, Ut struggled to find the right words. For the longest time, all he knew was pain. He didn't even know what his own folks looked like. This dark elf bro was abandoned since he was a tot, then got kidnapped. His life was just one big struggle. Hell on earth was basically all this guy ever knew. The Ott demons robbed him of every bit of joy. He felt like his life was totally cooked. Fubar with no way out. Now that he's free, he's actually second-guessing it. The poor dark elf, wondering if he's even worthy of freedom. And there he goes again, tears streaming down his cheeks. He naively asked to just follow Keller's orders, as if he himself couldn't believe this day had actually arrived. Keller corrected him right away, saying there's no such thing as giving orders here. Instead, the two of them would just vibe together, and thus a bond between the Dark Elf and the Demon Prince was formed. By evening, Keela's inner circle had finished off the Ott demons and rescued the Dark Elves. At first, he was worried sick that something might happen to them out there. But then he remembered Mother Nature loves them dearly, so all he could do was give them his blessing. Anyway, no matter where they end up living, it's auto better than the hell they used to know. But saw everyone off on their journey, and the brand new squad of 4 officially hit the scene. Jin, however, has already started roasting the newbie. Wood is such a good boy, ready to follow every instruction. Trials suggested they should find a place near the main river first. Thanks to his super-sensitive senses, the dark elf pointed straight to where the water was. Jin was like, wow, newbie's got skills, praising him non-stop. While Kiala curiously asked why they needed to find a river, the mage said they couldn't just keep walking forever. It's best to take the river route to keep the momentum going. Jin thought they were going to catch a dragon, but nope, he got shut down hard when the mage denied it. So he whined about his rotten luck. He hasn't even seen a unicorn, let alone a dragon. Kiala followed Ut's coordinates. The whole squad set off following his guidance. A bit later, and oh my god, look at that unicorn, guys. Just chilling and drinking water at the legendary Clear River. But as soon as it caught the scent of some big shot, someone tough it bolted fast. And this is the hilarious part. Turns out there really was a lit dragon right there. Back to our group. Trials kept nagging that they shouldn't dream of seeing a dragon. It's been a while. Let's check on Team Killian and see how they're vibing. Curly saw an Ott demon crying for help, and realized this was the only one left alive after the massacre. The white mage recalled the group's previous conversation. Dis was complaining about why the tracking spell kept glitching out when used on the target. Curly explained that she was super curious too, because she detected a ton of targets all over the place. They didn't expect so many of the Demon King's lackeys to still be around. That's why they couldn't pinpoint Keola in that hot mess. Curly confirmed this, which made the whole squad even more triggered, since it meant they'd waste a massive amount of time hunting them all down. Killiman, acting as the leader, suggested that exact option. He planned to wipe out all the demons scattered across the land, starting with Keola, and declared his revenge. The white mage then gifted the group an instant teleportation, straight to that location, to keep it quick and easy. This way, the rest of the Tonkian team could go take down the Demon King, while she went hunting for the others, so she teleported there using her magic, vanishing right before their eyes. As for Goro's son, Satoru over here was planning to delete the demons, making them fade away for good. The moment she arrived, she caught the scent of the kid's energy, making her wonder inwardly if Keola had stopped by here. The last Ott demon confirmed it, whining about how the kid had wiped out their entire tribe. Then she interrogated it about his whereabouts. Too bad the Ott demon didn't know and screamed for its life. But before it could finish bang, a bullet went straight through its head, ending its miserable life. The white mage was cold-blooded, having no use for useless demons. Her next goal was to track down Keola's energy signature and called out his name, cutting back to our group, finally stepping foot by the heavenly river. Our prince is in awe of the dark elf's talent. The fact that Ut can smell the river from that far away proves that he's got skills and is the real deal. Meanwhile, Jin is still trolling as usual, reminding the dark elf not to get a big head too soon. Keller suggests finding a bite to eat. Since the squad hasn't had a proper meal in days, Jin is stoked and volunteers to help out, because she's an OG when it comes to fishing, and this river is loaded with fish. But alas, our dark elf friend snags them all in a heartbeat. Ut shows off his ability to control the water, using his natural power. That's why the fish just swim right into the basket. Trials is hyped to have him on the team. Meanwhile, Jin is salty for not getting any praise and even tries to start the fire. But Trials was faster. using a fire spell in a snap. Jin feels like a total NPC in the group. Her vibe is ruined, so she sulks off alone. Later, the whole squad gathers to eat fish thanks to Ut. Kiala sees Jin's long face and curiously asks why she isn't eating. For being lazy, Trials confiscates Jin's portion, rubbing salt in her wound. A while later, Kiala realizes his senpai is feeling down in the dumps. To cheer his senpai up, he requests some fruit for dessert. Senpai loyally gears up to find fruit immediately, and even though Ut says he can find fruit in no time, the bro stops him because he knows it'll make Jin sad. He gives this super important task to Jin, and she eagerly heads out to get it done. Trials thinks Keller's senpai is way too cute, calling her Miyatan. Then she notices the prince is being such a simp for her, and teases him about having a crush. Keller denies it like crazy, acting like he's just really craving fruit. Also, they ask Ut if unicorns are actually for real. Luckily, they are because he can smell them nearby. Meanwhile, Keela is plotting to have some badass dragon drop from the sky so they can all ride it and go wild. Trios emphasizes that you don't stand a chance, kiddo, just like she's said a million times already. The scene shifts to our loyal senpai, who is happily searching for fruit, and finally spots some at the top of a tree. She jumps right up to pick the apples, unaware of what she's actually stepping on. Suddenly, the ground starts shaking. But it's not the ground. It's a wild dragon staring her down. Her bad luck is truly on another level, randomly bumping into a terrifying dragon. In that moment, she knew she was cooked. She lets out a blood-curdling scream at the sight of it, even though she was dying to see one earlier. Kiala learns from our dark elf friend that he can sense the natural energy of the planet. It's hard to put into words, but that's the gist of it. He can sense energy from a great distance. His explanation is so fascinating that our prince wonders to himself, if it's like looking at a map, now they can raid dungeons all they want. However, the only downside is that he can only scan within a certain range, making the dark elf feel self-conscious about his usefulness. Kiala is curious, wondering if this ability can be upgraded. Through training, the dark elf confirms there is a way to level up, and that's by consuming the clairvoyant stone of a 1,000-year-old dragon. It would buff his power by several hundred times. It sounds so hardcore that Keela is like, wait, what? Talking about hundreds of times is pretty mind-blowing. But as Shu said, finding a dragon like that is no walk in the park, and they don't even have the stats to solo it anyway. Eager to hear more about the dragons, Kiala wonders how strong those winged beasts really are. Trials explains that dragons are the ultimate final bosses of this world. Plus, they absolutely despise the demon race. Anyone who can actually tame the dragon race must have nerves of steel. It sounds a bit cap, but Keela has to admit, only a real beast could pull that off. This kid still doesn't get it. Knowing the dragon's heart is a lot more complicated. As for that clairvoyant stone, yeah, forget about it. Finding it is harder than finding a needle in a haystack, Trios emphasizes. Don't even dream about it. This goal is definitely a no-go. Kiala finally has to swallow the bitter truth, but still low-key hopes for a miracle for the old man. The dark elf returns to find the lackey out picking fruit. She's running for her life because of a dragon. That's totally wilding out there. Rio is shook to the core. Can't believe their own eyes. Did they really just pull up on a dragon? The whole squad auto-switches into Olympic mode, hauling ass to get away. Even the mage lady has never seen a dragon this massive before. Jin keeps screaming her head off, which only serves to aggro the dragon further. Those ear-splitting shrieks reach the ears of the white-clad sorceress. Callie, she's about to catch them. After a while, the dragon totally loses track, wondering where those small fries dipped to. That was lucky as hell. The whole group hid behind some boulders and survived, so the dragon gives up and flies away. Trios immediately loses it and yells at the useless lackey. You went to pick fruit and brought back a whole dragon. Meanwhile, the dark elf guy is still in awe of the dragon's massive size. He guesses the dragon must be 1,000 years old. While Kiala is still dazed, Callie scares the daylights out of him, casually stating that the dragon has a clairvoyant stone. Before Keela can even process it, the others are like, wait, where did this lady crawl out from? The guy is still asking, who, what, when, where? Totally lost. Trios jumps up when she realizes she is the famous sorceress from White Tonkin. The whole group can't believe their eyes, running straight into a member of that elite team, and being hunted on top of that. Everyone immediately gets into a fighting stance to take her down. But the cold-faced sorceress just stands there motionless. Rumor has it she's a stone-cold killer who doesn't know the meaning of mercy, even if she's drop-dead gorgeous enough to make guys faint, left and right. Kiala is officially cooked. I knew it. Your peaceful life is officially game over. His luck is the absolute worst. It's just one thing after another. And on top of that, he has to face off against that legendary mage. Curly tells everyone to chill and not act tough for no reason. Kiala is completely shook. He didn't expect to hear that at all. The white sorceress points right at the traitor of the Tonkin squad and says Trios might know a thing or two about fighting, but it's useless because this lady is so cracked she could delete them all. with just a single spell. Keala turns pale hearing that. He turns to the red mage to confirm it. The bad news is she's right. If she gets serious, the whole squad is toast. She can solo the entire group. It's a total nightmare. Killian is probably just a small fry in her team. The good guys are definitely in trouble now. The lackey is scared witless knowing they're cornered. But Curly says there's no point in fighting. Just go with her quietly. She promises they'll live for a few more days, but Keala isn't having it. He needs to know where she's planning to take them. The white sorceress happily announces that she's bringing them all in. Big Boss Killalun is waiting for you guys. Trios knew it. The white team is already acting on their master's orders. Curly emphasizes that the big boss is hunting for Keela and they must capture him. But the Demon King's son won't be easily tricked. He knows perfectly well that following her only leads to death. The white sorceress smirks. At least by going with her, the kid gets to live a few more days. Hearing that, Keala feels his whole world spinning. He thought this was the magical world he had always dreamed of. Turns out he's just staring death in the face. He knows full well that listening to her is like signing his own death warrant. He'd rather die fighting on his feet than just accept this fate. He summons the power from his bow. He fires an arrow, but the sorceress blocks it with ease. The rest of the squad also charges in to attack. But Ariel's magic can't pierce through Callie's defensive barrier. The Dark Elf's attack is also a total bust. In the end, her barrier remains impenetrable, protecting her from any danger. How strange. Jin also wants to prove herself in this battle, wanting to show her master that she's useful too. So this time she's being extremely careful. At least she thinks, but then she's dumb enough to use a melee attack on the barrier. Trios can only scream at Jin to run away as the white sorceress takes the chance to show them what a real power gap looks like. As a result, Jin takes a lethal ice spell head-on and gets sent flying. Callie coldly declares that now she's fine with bringing Keela's corpse back to the boss. And there it is. The sorceress rains down a hail of ice bolts from the sky. Luckily, Trios manages to cast a shield for the group, including Jin as the ice bolts slam into the shield. Meanwhile, Jin apologizes to her master for being reckless and useless. But Trios has had enough, snapping that now isn't the time to be doubting her own abilities. The shield is about to break. Keala asks if she has any more tricks to stop that woman's ice bolts. The problem is, Trios says even with her special magic, they don't stand a chance of winning. Callie is now like Gilgamesh opening the gate of Babylon, unleashing hundreds of razor-sharp projectiles. The shield shatters into pieces, and it looks like game over for everyone. The whole squad is struggling to find a way out of this total mess. Keala hopes he can use his brain to find a path to survival. Finally, he thinks of something. He recalls the presence within his own consciousness, hoping to meet that person again. He begins to charge up energy from within. Seeing this, Trios calls him an idiot, saying his mana pressure is only weakening the shield from the inside. Keala focuses all of his power, praying for that dark shadow to appear. But the figure doesn't show up. However, something happened. That giant dragon from earlier sensed the battle nearby. Drawn in by Keela's rage, sensing the Demon King's energy from the boy, she realizes it only manifests when he forces himself to use his power. Now she understands why she couldn't find him earlier. Even so, the white sorceress is still dead, certain that this battle will be the end of them. Keala thought he was about to catch an L here. Meanwhile, he's focusing intensely, practically begging to re-enter that conscious state. He guesses it activates when he's on the brink of death. But that's not the case. Ariel's barrier has reached its limit and finally shatters. The projectiles fly straight toward Keela. Everything seemed to be coming to a final curtain call, or so it seemed. Plot twist: the giant dragon has come to the rescue, looking even more badass than before, blocking the entire barrage. Keala is stunned to see the dragon helping them, instead of trying to end them like last time. Thank God this OP dragon is on our side now. The white sorceress is completely shook, but she still won't stop attacking. Meanwhile, the dragon seems to really vibe with Keala, leaving him beyond confused. Their eyes meet, triggering a flashback of the dragon's past. Turns out this dragon once served Keala's mother, meaning they technically knew each other. The dragon was very fond of her. They shared beautiful memories in this very moment. The dragon's voice echoes in his head, telling him to run away quickly. Keala is startled to hear the monster's voice. The dragon coughs up its precious clairvoyant stone. Keala catches it, feeling totally dumbfounded. He has no clue what it is, until the monster confirms it for him. Keala can't wrap his head around why the dragon is helping him so much. The bad thing is the winged beast. There's no time to explain. Right now it wants you to run for your life and hide your true power. Keala is still standing there like a deer in headlights, but the dragon senses the danger and urges him to move it. Back to the fight. The beast breathes a lethal blast of fire at her. The white sorceress successfully defends herself, but Callie is still surprised to see a dragon actually helping out a demon. Talk about a plot twist. Keala has no time to chit-chat anymore. He's got to take this chance and bounce. He gathers the whole squad and they haul ass out of there. With that tanky dragon blocking the way, they might actually make it. Even that old hag? Callie feels a bit annoyed seeing some random beast jumping into her combat. With this monster in the mix, she's gonna have to galaxy brain a new strategy. The dragon keeps spamming fire everywhere, but still hasn't broken through her barrier. Callie is locked in now. She's about to clap back with her fire magic, and she's only using a fraction of her power. The lady draws a massive magic circle that's even bigger than the dragon itself, then summons a giant meteor straight out of that circle, aiming right for the dragon's head to crush it. Barrage of meteors comes crashing down, leaving the dragon no time to react. Before fading away, the winged creature remembers its happiest moments, spent by the side of Keela's mother. The meteor makes a direct hit on the dragon, instantly deleting it. From afar, Keela sees the sheer power of that move and knows exactly how it ended. A gruesome pool of blood covers the icy meteor, proving it pierced right through the dragon's thick hide. Callie lands, wondering why this crazy dragon was helping those demons. She's still totally clueless, so she uses her memory manipulation magic to dig for more info. But just then, the dragon unleashed its final strike before disintegrating. The monster declared that humanity is nothing but selfish and cruel creatures, and one day they will have to pay the price for everything they've done. With that, the dragon's body crumbled into dust, leaving nothing behind. This beast chose to end its own life so she couldn't pry into its memories. Talk about ride or die. Just so Keola and the crew could go invisible and slip away safely. Curly felt the situation was a bit sketchy, but she still believed it couldn't change the doomed fate awaiting Keola. Candon raised her hand to the sky, asserting that the Demon King's successor would be erased by the hands of the Tunkan tribe. After the White-Skins escaped, the whole group was clueless about what happened to the dragon. It clearly wanted to take them out, so why the sudden U-turn? The Dark Elf guy had a conspiracy theory. He thought the dragon spared them because of Keola. Since the monster showed up, right as Keola flexed a bit of his power, the Demon King's son caught a glimpse into the dragon's memories, revealing that it had a connection to his mother. But Jin felt something was off. It didn't add up because dragons and demons usually hate each other's guts. She was curious about how the two sides even crossed paths. Even Keola didn't know the full details, but he could sense the warmth from their interaction. Oh, and the monster even left him a clairvoyance stone. Exactly what they needed most. Turns out the dragon was a top-tier ally, saving their lives and giving a gift to Shrio. Long story short, they were just saved by the Demon Queen. Keo was curious and wanted to know the deal between his mom and the dragon because he felt something in its eyes. He handed the stone to the Dark Elf guy. Ut took the stone, finally ready for his evolution. Trios reminded them that the White-Skins were breathing down their necks, so they needed the most cracked abilities to handle them. Ut was still shy about using such a precious gift. It's a rare find, super hard to come by. I feel kinda guilty using it. But in this situation, Keola strongly urged him to just go for it, since there was no one else to use it anyway. Ut did exactly as he was told and swallowed the stone whole. A strange sensation surged through his body. The Dark Elf guy witnessed the dragon's true memories. 1,000 years ago, a young dragon was tortured and experimented on by cruel humans. They tormented the beast and got a kick out of watching it fade away. The torture continued day after day. The monster cried incessantly. Generations passed and humans kept tearing it apart, harvesting its parts for their own gain. It was pure, unadulterated agony. And just as it was about to kick the bucket, they would heal it just to keep the experiments going. The great dragon endured this fate for centuries. Just imagine it. The poor creature eventually gave in to reality and lost its mind after endless cycles of torture. Crying was pointless, so the monster simply accepted its lot in life. Humans saw it as an achievement, to be able to make a dragon stop crying from pain. Just as the beast was longing for the sweet release of death, the Tunkan clan, led by the former Demon King, began their invasion of the human realm. He looked more terrifying than ever, and took pleasure in slaughtering everyone one by one. During that battle, the lab where it was held captive collapsed, and for the first time in its life the dragon was free. That's how it escaped that laboratory. Hell, all thanks to the demon invasion. It finally felt the freedom it had always dreamed of up in the sky. It tried to find others of its kind. It openly confessed the dark truth about the cruel human race and wanted to ally with the demons to plan an attack. But shockingly, no one believed it. They were too fond of humans and didn't want to mess up that relationship. Plus, they hated the demons' guts and were fighting alongside humanity against them. But most dragons had no idea about the dark truth behind their close bond with the human race. The only reason they felt any goodwill toward humans was because dragons like it had been tortured and experimented on for centuries. Those very humans had milked the dragons dry to keep their experiments going and decode their magic. But this dark reality wasn't accepted by its own kind. They didn't want any association with the demons, especially since they had already firmly rejected them. And because the dragons feared it would try to harm humans, it was left all alone. Nobody gave a damn about it, and it belonged to none of the three races. The lonely winged monster fell into a meditative state, wondering what its purpose for being born into this world was. After all, it had been shunned by all three sides and was helpless, so its existence felt completely meaningless. That was how the dragon began to isolate itself in darkness and total solitude. Its life wasted away for years, as it waited for the inevitable end. Until one day, a little demon girl rubbing her crying eyes approached the giant monster that was how it met Calista. The little girl had no one and started calling the beast Mama. The dragon was shocked to see the child running toward it, without a shred of fear. The poor girl clung to the monster's snout, weeping bitterly and treating the dragon as her own mother. Confused, the beast tried to explain that it wasn't her mother. It was in that moment that something sparked within the dragon. A light began to shine, the light of purpose, and the beast's very reason for being. And her name was Calista.